Hey, what's up, everybody? So this is actually the prologue before the actual thing, and I was challenged by my mom because that's how it is, and I wanted to get some inspiration for this vid. Instant meals, nothing wrong with it, but while some of it does taste kind of good, is it open? Oh shit, it's kind of open. So I'm gonna see if I can turn it on its side without dripping. Um, Yeah, so basically it's one serving, but the sodium itself is roughly 690 milligrams. If you want to actually break that down to how many tablespoons that is, that's actually 7 tablespoons of salt per serving. My mom bought this at Foodland, Sack and Save, for roughly $1.90 a portion. She bought 3. So roughly she spent roughly $7 for 3 packets a portion. You have about a half a cup of noodles in each serving. I want to make it into a cup. So basically per serving, my goal would be making a fettuccine alfredo using basically what they call a white sauce. In French, it's called a beurre blanc. This time, I don't want to make it into a beurre blanc because I'm considering not only my health but my family's health. People who will potentially eat the food that's in my refrigerator. So the purpose of this prologue is to show you that you can make awesome ingredients taste bomb yet have a certain finesse to it that's fun and it's easy to translate. In this series, we're actually going to be covering a lot of things. So in the beginning of the series, if you watch the announcement video on my YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe. I'll put where to search my YouTube channel because I don't have a custom URL yet. Basically, what you want to do is you want to, going back on what I was saying in my announcement video about the current changes to my channel and all of that. You want to actually look at seasoning and start off with what you should have in your cupboard, your storage, in regards to food. I'm going to cover majority. It's going to be heavily based on seasoning and ingredients. Because we're going into our summertime, we're going into spring, and we're headed into summer within the next several weeks. You want something that's light, but at the same time that's filling, that makes you feel good. And that ultimately makes you want to continue to cook, to push the boundaries of what you know as a cook at home. And to start, you need to understand seasoning. Now, with the classic fettuccine alfredo, especially with it being made, they use a lot of dried ingredients: granulated garlic, granulated onion, powdered garlic, powdered herbs such as thyme, rosemary. In a fettuccine that I've seen prepared by a lot of my friends, they use thyme and rosemary, a little bit of oregano, just to enhance the flavor. And again, it is a cream-based sauce. So the thing with me is that because it's, if I can read upside down, there's actually no ingredients list. So basically what I'm trying to figure out is what's in the cream sauce other than just heavy cream, either beef, chicken, or vegetable stock, and butter. And if they've actually used other ingredients on it. With majority of these ready prep meals, they probably don't, because it'll cut down on cost and they can maximize on volume. And that's ultimately what I'm doing for this series, is how can you maximize on volume but still keep the cost down. Generally, a portion like this, per portion, would actually cost you roughly 50 cents on the dollar. Cheap, yes, but does it make you feel good? Not just full, but does it make you feel good? So in this series, again, I'm going to be focusing first on seasoning as well as storage technique. Like, for example, you can use just salt and pepper, but that's just boring. What about some dried herbs in there? What about some spices to get that palate, your tongue, craving for more food, more flavors? Not essentially making you fat, but making you feel really good. So with that being said, this is day 1 of the shoot. Hopefully you guys liked the video, and with that being said, I'm just going to use my regular vlog intro. Let's get this video started. So before we continue this video, I just want to say that a lot of people who are on food stamps are afraid to cook. I'm going to say that outright. If you get offended by it, well, I don't care. you don't have a right to say that you don't have time. Because if you have time to especially if you're on EBT, you're under the age of 50. If you have time to ball out, go clubbing, you have time to party it up but still hungover to cook your kids the meal the next day, you have no reason why you can't expand your horizons in cooking. At the same time, for the families that do work hard, the families that are pinching pennies and don't do EBT, I salute you. And I also want to say that this video is also meant to help you as well, simply because cooking now has been a chore. With our lives being busy as all hell, with everything in our lives going against us, it's nice to come home to a home cooked meal, but oftentimes we don't have the time to do that. So in this series, what I named Feeding Your Family While Being Priced Out of Paradise, I'm hoping to show you that you can make multiple meals using an EBT card or pinching pennies. More specifically an EBT card, and why I believe that even if you're above the poverty line, you should try and apply for it. Why it's everybody that's on an EBT, more importantly, should try to cook home cooked meals for their family. For this first series, we're going to be covering heavily on seasoning. This part of the stuff, seasoning, how to make your own seasoning, and you can use the recipe that you see in this video for your own purposes. How to make flavorful sauces, how to use the same protein in 3 different ways, or cook it the same ways but use it in different applications for different dishes, as well as some kitchen must-haves, especially in tools as well as seasonings. In my background, I have my cupboard open, my seasoning cupboard open, and if you were to look at it, it'll be confusing because the most important ingredient is on the top right behind. So we have chicken broth, not really important, but the most important thing that you should always have stock of is salt. Salt and pepper. Now, why these 2 staples of seasoning? Well, simple. A lot of people are afraid of seasoning, especially the people who are at EBT. Majority of them, believe it or not, that I've seen and that I've talked to about 300 people who I waited in line with at the EBT office in Kapolei. They say that they have diabetes. They have to avoid the salt because it affects their joints. It causes water retention. I'm saying stop buying the ready-used meals. The ready-used meals actually have more than 7 tablespoons of salt. Now, if you want an illustration, I don't have an appropriate measuring cup, but let me just get a regular tablespoon that you eat with. 7 tablespoons is this, full to the mound. So basically, it's not leveled, but it's just a small mound on top. 7 of these per serving. Now, if you were to do one of these as a pinch, say every time you throw in a dish, like a small pinch of salt, you won't even crack a tablespoon. So in this series, what I'm going to be doing in the first several episodes of the series is emphasizing on seasoning and how you can use the same amount of less seasoning than the pre-made stuff and create really good meals. In this case, my mom challenged me to make fettuccine pasta. Now, fettuccine pasta, considering, is a cream-based pasta. Now, I'm lactose intolerant. I had last night, TMI, I know, horrible farts. My stomach was hurting, and I farted so loud and so stink that I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. In fact, I couldn't sleep, simply because it gave my stomach indigestion. So I'm gonna try to make a fettuccine alfredo without the cream sauce. Blasphemy, I know. But what we're gonna really touch on is seasoning. How to make fettuccine alfredo taste good, give you that same creamy mouthfeel, but still make you feel happy that you ate it, while only using salt, pepper, a few herbs, a few dried herbs, and why you can use dried herbs instead of fresh herbs as an economical option. But before we go, I want to talk about the tools that you should have. I'm going to see if I can do Edward Scissorfingers. Don't do this at home. I've actually done this. I've actually held knives like these before. You should have these 4 knives, or at least 2 of these knives in your closet. If not 2, then a regular chef's knife would do. Now, this might not look like the average chef's knife that you use in your high school home ec class. This is actually a Japanese style knife that you can pick up at Don Quixote for roughly $30. And you can buy really reasonably priced stainless steel knives for under $35, especially these ones. An example which I bought actually 2 years ago at CVS Pharmacies in the Eva Town Center, called Pure Komachi. These ones are amazing. You can find these in your mall, and I'm surprised that people think that they need big tools, but they really don't. You just need simple knives, a sharpener that you can get off Amazon or even the As Seen on TV rack. They do have that. Just read the label. It says a knife sharpener, and do 3 passes, razor sharp edge it once more. But if you want to get really technical and you really love your craft, do some research on how to sharpen knives with stone. This is a sharpening stone, basically used for razor blades or X-Acto knives. The thing to note on these ones is the lighter side is normally the rough side, the dark side finer, meaning it's not as coarse as the rough side. Now, I haven't soaked this in water, so you wouldn't really feel the texture, but you generally want to use this every, I would say, 6 months or every 2-3 months, depending on how many times you use your knife. I use this every 3 months because I use this knife religiously. This is actually my second knife from Don Quixote. But that's enough about tools of the kitchen. Let's get onto seasoning, and we won't actually be purchasing the seasoning until the 5th. So in the meantime, I'm going to take today, which is the 28th, I believe, to talk about seasoning. I started off this video with kitchen essentials, aside from the tools and all of that. So the reason why I'm here at Safeway is to show you that you can find really good products and examples of really good products and probably buy them in bulk. Now, why am I in a grocery store if all we're going to be doing is buying things in bulk? Well, when you go to, let's say, a Safeway, or say for example, Foodland, Sack and Save, Times, the seasoning aisle would be located directly or near, probably I would say a good 10-20 feet to the seasoning aisle. And that's because when you go to your butcher, the people behind the what's that, the counter, that the butchers, I call them the butchers, but the people that cut the meat, portion it so that way it's distributed for mass sale. They're there to help you to find the best seasonings for your stuff. However, they're contractedly, in a sense, they're in a way contracted to give you brands that are basically tied in with the company. Like for example, Organics, believe it or not, is a brand that is synonymous with the Ralph and Safeway brand. Not to say that their brand is not bad, not to say that McCormick's isn't as good, but oftentimes they don't tell you how much seasoning to put on your steak, how much seasoning. Say for example, you want to have like a barbecue-esque seasoning. What type of herbs should you put in? What type of spices should you put in? And that's when you go to YouTube and they say, oh, you add a little bit of this and you try to mimic it, but then you end up having something that tastes like crap. So in my case, since I do know how to do that and I do know how to eyeball measure, my job is to basically help you eyeball it yourself. Now, I know behind me is coffee. That's a hint for myself that I need to drink some more coffee because technically I had zero sleep. But something that you should always have in stock in your kitchen, especially the best places to get really good olive oil, is in your grocery store. Now, granted, this isn't like the fancy stuff, but say for example, my go-to brand, especially if I want to be really fancy, is Bertolli. Bertolli is one of them. Let's see if they have another one. They have Star, which is right at the bottom. They have, let's see, what else? So that way I don't really get into it. And they also have, which one is this one? They also have these ones, these Hawaii brand oils, macadamia nut oils. Now, macadamia nut oils, believe it or not, have a very high smoke point, meaning you could put it in the pan and they don't smoke as easy, so long as you slowly warm up your pan. But these add a really good flavor, and these are really good in dressings. Now, next to it is like spray oils, not bad, but I wouldn't use them for searing anything, simply because it gives a very tannic, very propane-like taste. Now, what's wrong would you say with regular old vegetable oil? Well, nothing really. I would use it for frying. This actually is one of the best oils for frying. Not the brand, but vegetable oil. Vegetable oil is really good for frying. But it doesn't really do much for you. It doesn't really do much for you in the aspects of multi-purposing. Now, another multi-purpose use that you can actually use for your body is coconut oil. Coconut oil is actually a good skin and all of that. But in regards to food, coconut oil really doesn't do much other than give it a sweet, nutty flavor, but it burns also very, very easy. So the oils that you would want to go for is olive oil. One, because it's good. Tastes good with just bread, herbs, salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic, but really good. A cheap alternative and another good tasting alternative is, oh, excuse me, I just had breakfast, so excuse my gassiness, is avocado oil. Now, don't believe everything you read when it says high smoke point. This does have a high smoke point, but it doesn't really do much, again, in the realm of seasoning, and there's not much you can get out of it. With certain vinaigrettes and certain dressings that you make out of it for your salads, there's a very off taste to it. For me, at least. Don't take my word for it, you try it. Look up a recipe on YouTube and try it. On top of that, when you go to the store and you want to price out ingredients to buy, say for example you're making Thanksgiving meal. An essential herb that you should have, a dry herb specifically, is either parsley or thyme. Let's see if they have parsley. Parsley. Let's see if they have rosemary. Oh, right here. There's another one. Cilantro. And where in the hell is the rosemary? And rosemary. Now, you can get the regular whole rosemary. Like, they have different brands that sell like whole rosemary and all of that, and grind it yourself. And in this episode, in this basically 3-4 day episode, I know I said 2-day episode, but I found that doing it all in one hit is too much for my body, and quite frankly I don't have the cash for it, and it is quite expensive to buy these herbs fresh. But something that you should always have is a ready-made herb blended salt and pepper based seasoning. And the reason why I cited those herbs specifically is because those are what I call the general term herbs, because you have a multi-purpose for it. And on top of that, if you want to go a little bit more fancy, before I walk away finally, you should also have onion powder, and garlic powder. Now why would I start with those ones as your kitchen essentials for seasoning? Well, simply because kitchen essentials for seasoning, you can use that all around. Garlic goes with everything, onion goes with everything, thyme and parsley is used. If you look at all of the recipe books, in one shape or form or another, they have thyme, parsley, cilantro, and whatever else herbs I use, because quite frankly, I'm discombobulated. I woke up too early, and I just got into Safeway when they opened. Now, the next outlet I'm headed to is ubiquitous of the diverse food culture here in Hawaii, which is the Asian food aisle. Here in the Safeway Eva, it's in the front. You can't miss it. So here we are. We're at the Asian food aisle. Now I'm gonna try to angle my camera towards the soy sauce aisle. Now, oftentimes when you're in a local grocery store, no, I wouldn't consider Safeway a local grocery store. I would consider Foodland and Times a local grocery store. You'd have something like, say, Aloha soy sauce or Kikuman soy sauce. That should also be in your refrigerator. The reason why soy sauce should be in your refrigerator, it's another form of salt. But ultimately, that is one of the most ultimate in Hawaii's food repertoire or food cuisine base, whatever you want to call it. It is one of the most versatile seasonings you can have because you can marinate with it, you can cure with it, not air dry cure, but cure with it in a vacuum sealed bag, and you can basically do a lot with it. You can use it as a natural food coloring that gives it a nice caramel color. See, for example, with caramelized onions, it works brilliantly. Instead of adding brown sugar, there you go. The brown from the soy sauce seasons it without adding too much salt, and it reduces as it cooks, intensifying that salt flavor. At the same time, if you're using a specific type of onion, the sweetness varies from onion to onion, but that's for another episode. When you look at saving money, multi-purposing whatever you can use, especially in the aspects of food, will save you a ton of money. However, if you buy it from a grocery store and you're not going to be using it for more than a day, you shouldn't. And also too, the reason why you want to bulk buy it and you want to make several batches of the multi-seasoning is because you can put it in a storage container that's airtight and ultimately will have a longer shelf life. So, in short, for this part of the prologue, kitchen essentials that you should have. You should have a form of oil, cooking fat. Now, another way that you can, in regards to cooking fat, you could actually save your bacon fat. Now, generally speaking, bacon fat is not the healthiest thing to use, but keep in mind, when you're making like a steak, or say you're adding fat back into, like, say, a thin cut of pork, say, let's just say a pork loin, that's not that bad. And on top of that, it also lessens the salt, because if you actually dip your finger with, or let's just say instead of dipping your finger, which is kind of nasty, dipping a piece of bread in, you taste the salt in the bacon fat. So you have salt already because bacon by its nature is cured in salt. It's basically a 4-to-1 ratio of salt to sugar. Now, what type of salt? I'll go into that later in the next day. But so this is part 1 of the prologue. Part 2, where we're actually cooking, would be episode 1. I hope you guys like what you saw. I'll go more in depth on the bulk seasoning and what you should keep in your pantry, as in bulk order items, and how long it normally would last, because my track record and dried herbs has been not only a bad but a 50-50. So I'll show you how to blend it and make each seasoning work for different proteins. The proteins that we'll be using in the next episode are beef, chicken, and fish. And the chicken is actually a challenge that my mom challenged me to try and make a fancier version of Marie Callender's instant ready meals, which is the fettuccine alfredo. That's all for today. I hope you guys like this video. I hope it is informative, and I hope that you guys learned something from this prologue. Peace.